Jaguar Heart, we're back, baby. Round two. It's been, I think, 2 years ago we recorded the first one.
It'd be close to 2 years, man. It's good to be back.
What's happening?
Man, a lot's changed. Everything's the same, but everything's different at the same time. So I think a few more refinements in the work. Still in masculinity, even though I'd been trying to get out of that for a while just because of you get over the onslaught. And I remember we had a conversation offline or after our last podcast where I had to ask you to take down one of the reels because I was getting death threats, just getting hammered, and I kind of just got over it. But I managed to stay in it. I realized I was going in a direction that wasn't best serving me. So I was more exposing different movements. Now I just focus purely on helping men. I don't fight the enemy. Sometimes Nietzsche said it the best. It's like, you got to be careful in not becoming the monster while you're trying to fight the monster. And I realized I was sort of becoming that, and I didn't want to do that. So now I just focus on men. I don't engage in any sort of conflict online anymore. I'm just not interested in it. It's just not worth my time. So that was the last podcast we did.
Yes, and then I had the opportunity to film for you over the weekend, and one thing that really stood out for me was, I think a lot of people were caught off guard by this as well, when you mentioned around mental health and suicide, and that it's not the physical body that wants to die, and it's a perception that a lot of people have, which is why suicide rates are so high. But it's actually the program that wants to die. Can you explain that a bit more? Because for me, I just mentioned to you around going through a breakup, and I didn't get to a dark place of I want to take my own life, but I knew there was parts of me that needed to die. How do we identify these parts, and then how do we kill them?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. Life is all about evolution. Like, we're constantly evolving. People like certainty, and in a world that is the fabric of our reality is uncertainty. We just don't know what's going to happen. And so if we can predict what's going to happen, we become sure about it. That becomes a sense of safety. It becomes predictable. Then we know what's going to happen. Not many people are comfortable in uncertainty. However, in the world of uncertainty, what goes on is as we evolve, our identity starts to shift and change. And so when this happens and we're not listening, and evolution requires its own process. So there's birth, evolution, destruction. So when we go through different stages of life, what people don't see is that crisis precedes evolution. It's rarely done in this, nice little fairy tale kind of way that's nice and easy. This is where we have to go into the underworld and slay the dragon, especially as men. This is us splitting from the mother. But what happens is, because in our society we don't have rites of passage anymore, life is going to ask us to split from a version of us and leave it behind, which is a form of programming. So when I was analyzing suicide and looking at the programming aspect of it, I was thinking, which program contains the behavioral adaptation to suicide? Because there are other ones, like the program of there's something wrong with me, or I'm doing something wrong, has a negative emotional addiction to criticism. That criticism is going to bring in a form of defense, criticize and defend cycle. So if I need to defend something, what is the object that's coming towards me that I need to defend? It's usually an enemy. We defend against an enemy. Then what do you want to do with an enemy? You want to defeat it. So this whole construct is made up so I don't defeat the part of me that wants to defeat someone else. That's the part we need to leave behind. So that's one structure. So as another example for the people that are listening, the program of I'm not wanted has a negative emotional addiction to abandonment. So then I'm going to self-abandon, so someone else doesn't abandon me, which then I'm in the very energy of abandonment that I'm trying to avoid with someone else. So these are the parts of us that are imprinted on us, I believe, in the womb, and activated and reinforced in childhood. So whatever we take on, what happens is later on, that part of us is going to want to die. And it's usually through crisis, like I said. So the part of us that wants to die will start sending messages up saying, I want to die, I want to die, I want to die. But it's not the physical death that wants to happen. It's the psychological death of the identity, or that version of us, which is the program asking to die. Now, when I found this, I remember where I was in my Jeep and I was driving away from a house and it was raining. And it was like, for 2 years, I tried to crack the suicide program because I'd seen that these programs house different physical elements. They house different chronic illness, different areas of the body. All these sorts of things show up. And so I thought it was relegated to one program, and it wasn't. It was every single program is asking to die. It can be any one of them. When it's ready to go, it will start sending messages up like this. We might feel like we want to die. We might feel that the world would be better off without us. We might feel like life's too much and I just want to end it. That's the program sending messages up that it wants to die.
It's fucking deep.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you mentioned it, I was like, I've never heard someone explain it like that before. And how do we best educate people on this? Because I think it's so important that people understand this perception, especially when they do find themselves in dark places. It's they can identify that it's not them that physically wants to die. It's just a part of them.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's a tough one because we're up against this highly pathologized society, and our most of our industries at the moment, they're they're very limited in the way that they deal with things. They're mainly problem focused, symptomatic focused. They don't really want to get to the root cause a lot of the time because it doesn't create a customer. You know, if you heal someone naturally at the root level, things just go away. And it's usually based in a form of language and shift in perception. I've seen people with throats that have closed up, major skin issues, chronic illness, like go straight away. One guy I was working with in a men's group, just I think it was last week or the week before, he was in the program of I'm not going to be okay. He had chronic back and hip issues for a decade that he tried to fix with no success. As soon as I released him from that program, it was gone instantly. 10 years gone. So it was his perception around what was going on to the future that he wasn't going to be okay. He was in a brace position, like internally in a brace, not walking around like that, but his body was so tense. His hip and his back had developed a chronic condition of tensity and of tension and bracing. Soon as we unraveled the I'm not going to be okay program, because his father died when he was 13, so he could never predict that he was going to be okay because his sense of security and safety was gone. He was driven by a fear of loss, which was the negative emotional attachment to I'm not going to be okay. So everything that he's always afraid of losing because he lost his dad. He's in a constant state of tension around that. His back and his hip took that on. As soon as the program released, it was gone. He's seen chiropractors, doctors, everyone you can imagine, and no one could get to it. And I got it to him in 38 minutes, and it was gone. So the programming in the subconscious is where we need to go to resolve most conditions. Not every condition. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinical psychologist, and I don't care. I've seen what works thousands of times. And so for me, about direct experience, that's all I care about. And so getting it out there, we're up against public narratives. You know, we're up against, hardcore universities that think the only people that are qualified are the ones that should even have access to try to help people. And we're fatter, sicker, weaker, and more fragile than ever. Mm-hmm. We've now got people, you even look at the social media landscape, it's like a cesspool. Most of the people on there that leave comments and some people make reels about me, they would never say that to our face in real life. Like the law of nature just wouldn't let it happen. But now people have got this parasitic, psychopathic approach to just go, oh, I'm going to get online and I don't have to be responsible for it, because in the real world, that just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't be allowed to happen. It'd get worked out pretty quick. So we're up against a lot of public narratives, which is unfortunate. We're up against a highly entitled victim culture that celebrates victimhood and being offended. We're up against a high level of entitlement. Like, people are entitled, weak, fragile, and they demand that the world bends to them. And it's like a new label, a new diagnosis is worn as a participation trophy.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're up against. Most people don't want to change. They simply don't. Most people want the world to change for them. And that's cool. Like, live your life. Do it. I don't mind if that's your path. Great. But people like that will willfully try to stop other people helping others so they don't break free, because other people breaking free shines a light on their own victimhood that they don't want to break free from.
Yes, and the reality is the world is not going to change for you.
No, man. You can argue with reality, but you'll be wrong 100% of the time.
And talk to me about, you mentioned getting to the program and being able to release it. I know there's probably a huge process behind that, but could you give a little insight on what that looks like and how we release those programs?
I reverse engineer it. So language is what gives it away. So as an example, if I'm listening to someone that is based in, a hypervigilance around control, as an example, people can become very controlling. But when people see others as controlling, they're not actually addicted to controlling others. They're addicted to being controlled, because everything around them controls their response to that situation. So then they try to control the situation. So I'll just look for what happens through language. They'll talk about it. They'll speak about it. And based on their story and where they go, based on the words that they use, language gives it away for me. So I can actually identify what's going on for them. And then I just track it back and reverse engineer it to the programming. It's pretty simple to do, but I've done it for, 6, 7 years now and thousands of people. So I don't know how many sessions I've done, probably more than 10,000 now. So for me, it's just second nature. I can hear it in someone when they're talking about it. So we might hide something as an example, most people in the men's space, or it's all about shame. 9 out of 10 guys that come to me aren't dealing with shame. They're not. It's shame, it's shame, it's shame. Express it, release it, then you're all good. Then these guys go through thinking that that's what they need to deal with and that's what they need to fix. And it's not. It might be an addiction to criticism. It might be an addiction to denial. It might be an addiction to rejection. More men, I would say, have an addiction to rejection than they're trying to deal with shame. That's what I've seen. And so when I start to see how this operates, I just start to reverse engineer it. Once we get the root core of the program, which is a code, so it's like, I'm not going to be okay is one, I'm not wanted is one. What happens is where people get caught up, they get confused about the belief that's coming out of the program. As an example, I'm not wanted with the abandonment construct that's attached to it. People are trying to fix the abandonment wound. They think they have an abandonment wound when they don't. They have an addiction to being abandoned. So they're living it out perfectly, but they just don't know it. But I'm not wanted houses that. So instead of just going, I've got an abandonment wound, we have to repeat back the program. I'm not wanted, feel it. There's an energetic release, and then it stops happening. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there is a lot. But what comes up for me, and because I like to relate it back to my own situations, is in my previous relationship, and you mentioned the word, men have, it's not so much shame, it's like the fear of rejection and other things like that. For me, that's where I felt like I fell into the being the nice guy because I feared that rejection. I feared not feeling good enough. So I would pander to her needs and try to be the good guy to get that love reciprocated to me. And I now know, learning the hard way, is it doesn't work.
Yeah. Most guys figure that out. Most guys figure that out over time, right? But it's what we're taught. The nice guy has like two arms to it, right? There's the nice guy and there's the bad boy. So the bad boy just doesn't really give a fuck. Nice guy gives too much of a fuck. That's the thing. So it's underneath it is both of them have an addiction to rejection. Bad boy doesn't let anyone in, right? I played that construct for a long time. I was like, nah, I'm going to stay over here. Because underneath it, I was afraid of rejection, so I would reject the person before they could reject me. The nice guy gets rejected over and over instead of rejecting someone else. So they just roll over and do whatever the woman wants. Both of them have a defense structure and addiction to rejection out of the programming of I'm not loved. That's where it comes from. So if I'm not loved, I'm going to do anything to make sure I don't get rejected. People please, nice guy. The bad boy is, well, I'm not loved, so I'm not going to let anyone in. So then no one can expose that. So that's how it works. And then what happens is the attachment styles can get born out of this as well. So anxious and avoidant. The anxious one will often move into protesting behavior, which is prove to me that you love me. So they break up with someone and then the person goes, all right, sweet, I'm out. And they're like, no, please don't leave. This is a really common structure that goes on where the person that's, doing the action of pushing someone away, but then doesn't want them to leave. It's like they're saying, prove to me that you love me by saying you won't go. But that's not actually what they're trying to do. They're trying to prove to themselves that they're not lovable. So this is what happens with it. So it's the nice guy is an adaptation to a mother that has devoured the child and hasn't let the child go. Right? So the mother's usually a smothering mother or devouring mother that doesn't let the young boy reach his potential or be his own individual man. She suffocates him. We're seeing that in society at the moment. We literally are in a cultural devouring mother towards masculinity. And masculinity is attempting to be erased and replaced with traditional femininity, and that's what healthy masculinity is. So this is where you see the adaptation, the nice guy is not overly threatening. It's manipulative, but it's usually non-threatening. The worst type is the performative ally. I've seen this. This is guys that can't compete with other men for attention from women. So what they do is they become like the male feminists to get approval from women and tear down other masculine men in the meantime. I cop a lot of this from some of these guys. They're the most dangerous ones because they will, it's called a cuttlefish. Like a cuttlefish will adopt female looking traits. So when all the alpha male cuttlefish or more sexually selected males move away from the female, he's adopted female characteristics of the cuttlefish, then turns into the male to sleep with the female. That's what these performative allies try to do.
Yeah.
Like they're fucking
They
disgusting.
infiltrate.
Oh mate,
Fucking hell.
they're the worst, man. They usually take on the cause of women. They will say, you know, like patriarchy, and like they tear people like me down because I stand for traditional masculinity, while trying to get approval from women, because they won't get approval any other way. So the only way they can do it is to become the performative ally. So it's kind of like the step up from the nice guy. None of them are really inherently wrong, because they're just adaptations to wounding underneath it. And so, you know, we kind of have to have a little bit of compassion for it, but at the same time not tolerate it and call it out. The nice guy is really rampant in our society. It's really big, and that's because boys haven't split from their mother.
How do we split from our mother? Because everything you've mentioned like describes me. My mum, I love my mum, but she really loved me, cuddled me, protected me, and didn't allow me to kind of be my own individual. And now with all this happening in my life, it's the crisis that I've needed to detach and step into who I need to be. But how do we break free from the mother? Because you obviously still love your mum. So how does that process look like, and why is it so important?
Yeah, so there's two answers to that. I'll go backwards from when you're an adult male, because they're typically the ones that I work with. There's a two-step process. The first step is to differentiate. Differentiate is to become different gender opposite to the mother. It's pretty simple. So the way that I like a sort of short version of that is you write out 3 things that you hate about your mother, and then look to see where you're embodying that and split from that and stop doing it. That's just the first access point. Then it's the individuation process. This was a term coined by Carl Jung, which is you go through the split, you bring awareness to it, and then there's, for the male, it's integrating his, I think it's anima and animus, so the inner feminine, to integrate that to become whole. So it could be, you know, releasing the aspects of the mother that are the inner feminine, and the woman has to do that with the inner masculine. So there's elements to that I agree with, but I'm more in the world of the psychological program, because I believe the ego is a collector of programs that are based in language, which are reinforced through physics, because physics, you know, most bodies agree that at the basic level of everything's a vibration. Vibration creates a sound, sound creates a tone, tone creates a word, word creates language, language creates a code, code creates a program. The programming is how we see the world. So as an example for this, a boy might be in the world of I'm not safe. I'm not safe has a negative emotional attachment to distrust. He doesn't distrust the world, so he doesn't want to leave his mother because his mother's safe. And then what we want to do, and this is a bit of a strange statement, but we don't want to do it literally but metaphorically, is climb back into the womb, into the amniotic wonderland, so we don't have to be responsible for ourselves. So the first separation is when we're born. The second separation is when we psychologically separate from the mother. Now, that's how I do it in adulthood for men. Most of them, life will do it for them, and it's preceded with crisis. Crisis is the evolutionary necessary step for them to split from the mother. It just looks like what you're going through a breakup.
Yeah.
That's what will happen. So it won't look like, oh, I'm splitting from my mum, but a woman will come in to leave you so you can split from the mother internally and psychologically, and you can graduate and evolve into a more mature version of yourself. This is what's happening for you right now. That's one way when we're adults. How tribes used to do it is the boys would be taken at 7 years old. So boys will seek masculine programming around 7 onwards. If that doesn't happen then, that starts to happen in teenage years. That's why teenagers are like rebellious. They don't want to know their mum. They want to get away. That's them trying to individuate. So when they move into escapism, porn, things like that, porn is a way that men use so they don't have to be rejected by women, because if they get rejected by women, this is why approach anxiety is so high in men. If they get rejected by a woman, it means their mother's rejecting them unconsciously. And that's why it's so painful. And so they seek to escape, because it's much easier for men just to watch porn instead of getting rejected by women. This is where the problem comes from with it. And so if these stages aren't taken, so age 7 or teenager, then you're going to meet someone later on, and life is going to set that heartbreak up for you to break you open, to help you to evolve into mature masculinity.
I feel like you just painted out my fucking life.
Oh man, I've seen this many times before, man.
In my teenage years, I was addicted to porn. Then into the relationship with my ex, which was just built off sex, not actual strong foundation.
Yeah.
And then 9 years of not really being happy and not actually building something, and stepping into like my true masculine, becoming that nice guy and too feminine, which is now I'm in that crisis part, which is what's needed.
Got to leave it behind. You know, life is asking you, Nick, you ready to leave this behind, or you want to hold on really tightly to it? If you want to hold on really tightly to it, the crisis increases, because the necessary pressure and friction that is required to break you free, it's going to be met with equal resistance to that.
Yeah.
And so the greater I always say this, the more extraordinary you are, the more ordinary the circumstances that you're going to experience, meaning the more difficult.
Yep.
So it's like the greater the light, the darker the shadow. I did it too. I was just a womanizer for ages. That's the thing. You know, when I was growing up, I'm in my 40s now, so porn wasn't really readily available. But I'm sure I probably would have had an issue with it had I been younger than I am now. But I was a womanizer. That was my quote unquote bad boy playboy days, where I was not wanting to open up. And I had in my 20s, I had amazing women. I had the most amazing partners in my 20s up until late 20s. And then I went out and started to be a womanizer. So I didn't have a full history of that. I was more a serial monogamist, if anything. And then got into my later 20s, hit my stride a little bit, found moderate success. And then I was just out there, just, you know, dating lots of women, sleeping around, which that's probably my biggest regret as a male masculine man, is sleeping with the women that I didn't care about, because then I just created the women that I wouldn't marry later on. You know, that's the thing. And so it can become a very toxic outlet when we don't split from the mother, you know, and this is what's happening in our society now. So we don't split from the mother. Not only do we have to split from our birth mother, we have to split from the cultural devouring mother that we're in, because it's attempting to erase a masculinity big time. And what we're seeing is, if you're not emotional, vulnerable literally means wound. It's a form of weakness. Openness is a different thing. Vulnerability is like, this is celebrated, and we use words now for men like, oh, you need to be warm and tender, nurturing, all of this stuff. And these are feminine qualities. So now all of a sudden, healthy masculinity is associated with stereotypical femininity. That's gaslighting. Because if we look at a lot of the females that want to compete with males, they adopt, like Boss Babe's an example. One of them very publicly has tried to call me out, manipulated my words. And she's adopting competitiveness, dominance, you know, influence, risk-taking. These are stereotypical masculine traits. Harvard did a long-term study on this. Stereotypical masculine traits that I would be called intensely misogynistic or toxic for, while they embody it. Because all those women want is money and power. They don't want equality. They want equality so they can get more money and more power. That's it. And they adopt typical masculine traits while doing so.
And all that does is just fuck over the polarity of men and women and relationships and the traditional way that things should be.
Yeah, I mean, nature set it up that way. A guy in the crowd yesterday at the event that I was at said, isn't this just a human trait? It's like, well, males are thicker. Our muscles are denser, stronger, our bones are denser. We can go out in nature for longer. We're built for different things. Otherwise, we just have the same body. And in almost every culture, every generation, every era, the protector provider is in the masculine tribe. It's just that tribes didn't really divorce themselves from nature and think they know better than it. It's like saying masculinity and these roles are outdated. So you're outdating nature. To me, it's nonsensical. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me, that a human being says, oh, it's outdated and it's harmful. And look, not every man has what it takes to be a protector provider. They simply don't. And that's okay. It's not for everyone. It is for me. I'm in a traditional relationship with my woman. I look after her. I'm the protector provider and she's the nurturer and nourisher. And we have no conflict in our relationship. It's very easy. It's peaceful. It's harmonious. It's intimate. It's passionate. You know, like looking after her lights up my biology. I mean, you've got a little girl. How much does it light up your biology taking care of them?
Heaps.
That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to take care of our women and our children. It's just that we live in a society where the immediate threat of being killed by a bear or a tiger isn't so much there anymore. So now there's this luxury to say that, oh, men aren't needed. but all of our infrastructure is run by men. The dangerous jobs are done by men. Like, to make it easy, jump on Chat GPT and see what would happen in the first 12 months if every man quit their dangerous job. Mate, it's not a good look. But, you know, men aren't honored for that. Women expect to be honored for everything. And this isn't all women, by the way. It's a very small substrate of women that are doing this.
They're just speaking very loud.
They are, yeah. And it's like, well, the empty can rattles the most. You know what I mean? The one that usually has the most vitriol, and this is where Erica, I can't remember her name, she's on Diary of a CEO, so most of the feminist women are really traumatized. And that's the thing. And the men that slip into the nice guy usually have a bit of trauma there too. So we're like a very traumatized world. And if these were meant to work and it's quote unquote progressive, if you call being fat, sick, weak, and fragile progressive, then let's get regressive, because I'm not interested in that. I don't want to bring my children into a world, which my partner and I are in preconception care at the moment. I don't want a woman telling my son how to be a man, because she doesn't know how to be a man. I'll train him how to be a man. And that's going to be through displaying the elements and the foundations of masculinity to him by embodying that. You influence your children by how you act, not what you tell them. Like, their biology is going to come out and start to be in argument with their psychology. And so you can try to argue biology and instincts, but nature will always win, man. All it'll do is it'll just go, all right, well, you're not going to continue, so you're not going to have children, so see you later. That's how it's going to work. And we're seeing that at the moment. We're seeing a huge snapback. I think in the UK it was 60 or 66% of women said they would prefer to be a stay-at-home mum if given the chance. That's pretty high numbers, you know? And I think, well, I don't think, I know that every male that I know that is a protector and provider, mate, there's no better role.
I would agree. For me, as a man, if I had a woman who fully loved, supported me, and there was peace, like, I would do anything for her.
Yeah.
The sacrifices and be that provider. Yet we don't have that dynamic. Women are not wanting, like, it's good to see that more women are wanting to step into that traditional role now.
Yeah.
But in my instance, I know where I went wrong in my relationship. Though I was the provider, I covered everything. She didn't have to work, yet she didn't take on that role. And that's what kind of gets me in the mind, is like, in a way, I provided all that, but I was also the nice guy, which is why it didn't work.
Yeah. And nice guys aren't contained. You know, containment for me is like the number one masculine trait. Don't let emotions rule your life. Don't be driven by fear of loss. Don't be driven by emotions. Nice guys just are driven usually by fear. That's how it works. Like, fear of letting their woman down. Fear of saying no to them. You know, we're talking off camera. You said something. I said, those were the boundaries that you needed to instill in the relationship. You know, you have to have boundaries in your relationship. You know, my woman knows, like, she knows I'm very solid in my boundaries and my integrity around my boundaries. So it keeps things in check, you know, and I don't think we've even sworn at each other. There's never been an insult. We've never raised our voices at one another. We're very respectful of one another. And that's how a relationship should be. But in current society, it's been inverted. So you've got women that are more masculine than the men, and men that are more feminine than the woman. And like, men these days, almost, they're like competing for femininity. It's who can be more feminine out of the two of us. Like, that's really where it's gotten to. And you see men saying that this open woundedness under the guise of vulnerability is the natural state of their relationship. The woman just gets turned off. If she stays with a man who's overly soft, overly vulnerable, submits to her, then there's trauma playing out there. Your biology is just going to go, oh man, I don't like this. And if that's what you want to do it. I don't care if you want to do that. It makes no difference to my life. I just assess what I see. And I usually see these sorts of relationships as pretty unhealthy.
I want to speak about vulnerability for a second here, because for me, in the men's mental health space, it's around, you know, vulnerability, opening up. It's not weak to speak. And for so long, I was like, vulnerability breeds vulnerability. We should be open as men and having these deep conversations. Though when it comes to relationships, even myself, being the nice guy, I was probably a bit too much vulnerable and I opened up too much. So as a man, how how much should we open up to our woman?
Not much.
Not much.
No.
So then how do we just go to other men for what's going on?
Go to a therapist first.
Yeah.
Go to a coach or a therapist. That's the first thing. Well, first move. Like, get out and move. We process things through movement. Men want to fix things. This is when, even when, I haven't seen the study, I heard someone talking about the study, that even when women transition to being a man, when they have to take testosterone, one of the warnings on it is that your emotional state is going to be dulled significantly. We're not meant to be overly emotional. We're just not. We're meant to fix problems. This is the thing. So the first thing I say is go to the gym, sort it out, go for a run, move, and just change your state. You want to change your state, change your environment. That's the first thing. The second thing is see a therapist if you need to get it out. The woman that wants the man to be overly emotional, it's usually because she grew up in an environment that was unpredictable. And she didn't feel safe around the father, so she wants to know everything. Overly vulnerable, overly emotional, because they want connection, but really what they're seeking is predictability in that. I'm not telling a woman how to be a woman here, I'm just telling you from thousands of people that I've worked with, this is a very universal common theme that I see. And when it's encouraged, this overly, there's kind of like a spectrum with it, okay? So if it's just, babe, I'm having a hard day, I'm going to go to the gym and handle it because it's not your problem, go for it. You should always be open with that. I said I think I said in one of our previous conversations, I said, don't stonewall your woman. And I think that did quite well. I agree with that. Don't stonewall her. Don't just pretend like nothing's up. Say, yep, babe, something's up. I just got to handle it. I was going through a deep strategic process this morning. I said to Joelle, I said, sorry, I'm not very present with you. I'm strategizing at the moment around something that's pretty big for me. That was it. She's okay, cool. Gives me a kiss. Do you need anything? Do you want me to make you some food? That's it. If you're going through a hard time, if it's death, tragedy, loss, I'm not talking about that. That should be like an open display of what you're going through with your woman. I'm talking about the stuff like you come home and you're tired and you don't want to, you're not making enough money, or you're crying because the guys at the work site gave you a hard time. Women for the most part don't want to know about that. They don't. Like, being overly emotional and overly vulnerable, like it switches the polarity. It turns off the desire. And if you can't handle your shit, a woman will lose respect for you. They do lose respect for you. I did a poll on my stories. I did 3 of them, and this will tie it in. I asked men, how many times have you been overly vulnerable with your woman? It's been weaponized and used against you. 97% said yes. Then I asked women, has a man had an overly emotional display of fear, desperation, anxiety, anger, something else I can't remember now, and you felt turned off or wanted to break up with him or haven't wanted to be around him? I had 700 votes and it was 98% yes. And then I did another one where if you could stay at home and be a mum, and you knew that your man would take care of you financially and you could just focus on being a mum, I had a couple of thousand people respond to that. I think it was just under 2,000 from memory. 99% women said yes. So this is like the landscape. And look, my following's probably a bit of an echo chamber with it. I'm sure if we ask some other, left-leaning feminist accounts, it'd probably be the inverted, and that's okay. That's part of just the balance that happens. But with this, I've had my openness weaponized against me many times. I just don't do it. It's just easier for me to sort it out on my own. So I go sort it out on my own. If I can't do that, go do some movement. If that doesn't work, go to a therapist. And just keep your woman informed of what you're doing. So, babe, it's got nothing to do with you. I'm just not going to share it. They like the boundaries. Women like it when you say no. If you're a yes man, if you're a yes man to everything, right?
Yep, that was me.
They don't like it, right?
Yeah.
They don't. I always say a nice man is a yes man in a world that needs to be told no. Because that's all we need. Like, the world needs the authoritative father to come back that says no. Our world's out of control at the moment. It's chaotic. And because men have submitted and over, and they don't hold any authority, they hold, we're told we live in this tyrannical patriarchy, yet men are just rolling over and just going, okay, cool, they're afraid of women. That's not a patriarchy. It's not. There might be systemic inequalities, but we're not oppressed in Australia. People that talk about oppression are just, they look at, critical theory and they start to go, oh, we look at the systems of oppression and take that on. Our country's not oppressed. It's not. You know, everyone has equal voting rights. There's equal pay for, it's illegal to pay someone a different wage if they've got the same qualifications. You know, we look at that and it's just, it's kind of like this victim mentality still playing out. And this is where it's, you know, this is where the world needs to be told, no, I'm not going to bend to making you tell me how to speak or what I need to say. And I've copped it against that many times, but now it's just like, just slides off me. It doesn't matter.
But it shows the man you are. You live within integrity within yourself. You know what's right for you and you speak out about it.
And what's right for men. I get men every single day messaging me saying, thank you for standing up for us because no one else is doing it. And otherwise we have to go to this left-leaning ideology that we've got to be tender and, you know, soft and all this other bullshit when we haven't been given the rites of passage to develop resiliency. So then we can be gentle. There's nothing wrong with being gentle. And I think men should be gentle with women and children. But we don't have the capacity to be strong first and foremost. We don't have resiliency. I could take an easier path. I could just go down the road of being, you know, the mind guy and subconscious programming and not rattle any cages. But men is where my work is at. It's the most important thing, is I'm sick of seeing men kill themselves. I'm sick of men getting used and abused and then told they're the problem. And that's just simply not true on the whole. It's simply not true. And I'm just fucking tired of hearing it. Every day I get, you're toxic, you're misogynistic. I'm like, what does that even mean? What does that mean? And then you get echo chambers like some of the women that have made stuff about me. Women under 30 have a more difficult time to critically think, so they jump into hive mind and groupthink. This is, you can go and look it up. It's go watch the podcast on Diary of a CEO with Erica and the other two women. They're all feminists, and watch the difference in what they talk about. And they say they're maternal feminists and they love the power of motherhood. I agree. Like C.S. Lewis says it the best, all roles exist to support the one true role, which is the homemaker. That's the mother. And I'm all for that. You and I are disposable. We're males. We're the disposable sex out of the two. We should live up to that role. We should. And part of being the protector and the provider is standing for what's true and putting yourself on the line sometimes. And that's just what I have to do. But I mean, it's only in social media. You know, the people that would probably criticize me on social media would probably be nice to me face to face. And I'm sure if I sat down with most of the people that criticize me online and I didn't know them at a cafe, we'd probably get on really well.
Yeah.
We'd probably get on really well. And a lot of even some of the women that have called me out, you know, they're super successful. They're probably inspirational on some level. I could probably learn something from them. And they could probably learn a fucking hell of a lot from me too. And I know they could, but they're too blinded by their own myopic viewpoint and hatred of men. They can't get past that. The funny thing is one of them that has called me intensely misogynistic and whatever else she called me, she's so blinded by her own trauma, she can't see that I'm actually trying to create the men so they don't do what her father did to her. That's the thing. You know, I'm trying to create protectors and providers so the men don't leave, so they don't leave the women financially destitute. That's the bandwagon that she's on. She's so blinded by her need to be right, she can't see I'm trying to create the very men so they don't turn into people like her father. But she can't see that. They don't want to see that because it proves them wrong.
They don't want to accept that, do they?
No, they don't. And then, especially in my current relationship, my partner's health was shocking when she came out of a previous relationship. Within a few months, all of her health was sorted because I started taking care of her. So I disproved that for them too. They don't want to hear it. And that's why I don't try to convince them, because it's like, you know, why would you try to convince something that doesn't want to, why would you try to have a conversation with someone that doesn't want to listen to you? So my thing is just, I'll just keep telling men of what these people try to do. They wake up to it, like you did about the suicide thing. Men start to heal and be healthy. Everything starts to fall back into line.
So how do we rebuild men? Especially, for example, my instance around learning to trust again, trust women, building up your self-worth, your confidence, the fear of, you know, what woman is going to want a guy who already has a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we work through those, I guess, insecurities that have come through a breakup and then attract the right woman into our life?
I spoke to a guy yesterday about this, and he saw me after the talk I did about male suicide. And, you know, he grew up with a really terrible mother and a very cruel mother, similar to me. And he said, you know, I find that I want to, you know, sleep with a lot of women to take out my rage. And I said, that's not the answer. Women are meant to be protected. You don't do that. You don't make women responsible for your mother. This is what this woman that goes after me, she's making every man responsible for what her father did to her. And I say, don't do that. You know, you got to learn to trust yourself again, because there would have been times where you knew that something wasn't right and you didn't trust yourself. And so instead of putting it on her, make it on yourself and go, I'm going to learn to trust myself and my better judgment. Now, you're going through a period where you're looking after your little girl and you're going to be on your own for a bit. That's where you start to learn to trust your inner authority. Men need time alone to learn to listen and hear their inner authority, to know who they are. I had to do this. This is why it's so powerful, because otherwise, if you're not your own inner authority, you can be manipulated and controlled. So the first thing is, we cannot blame every woman for the sins of a few. My mother was fucking awful to me, man. Awful. Like I've said many times that my mother should probably be in prison for the child abuse that she committed against me and my siblings. But she was also my sensei. You know, she was my teacher. She was the most impactful person in my life. And now I have nothing but gratitude for her, because she trained me. It's, you know, when you put your kid into martial arts, the kid hates martial arts because it's hard. But then later on in life, he goes, oh man, he was the most, that sensei, that teacher was my greatest teacher. My mum was my greatest teacher, my greatest asset. Just didn't look that way at the time. Now, do I encourage what she did? No, it doesn't mean that I would ever do that to my child, but I'd make sure that I don't make every other woman responsible for her, you know. And then I brought in an ex, did the same thing. She was the same as my mother, like pushed me to the limits of my own consciousness and literal death, physical death, to overcome that. I'm not going to make Joelle, my current partner, responsible for that. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We've got such a beautiful and harmonious relationship that I can only know beauty and harmony through destruction and chaos. And those women represented that. I got to individuate and separate. And now in my current partnership, I've got everything I didn't even know I could ever have. It's the most beautiful relationship I've ever had with anything or anyone. And it's so harmonious. So the first thing is, it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but the first thing is you can't blame all women for what's happened.
Yeah.
You can't. That's not fair to the other women. There are amazing women out there. There are beautiful women out there. I love women. You know, I love women, man. Women are amazing. But we just can't make sure that they're all responsible, and we can't trust all of them. That's the first thing. Learn to trust yourself. And this is where, when you go from nice guy into good man, that's the transition, that's the maturity. Become a good man. You have to live by values. You have to know your values. So a man needs to know his values. When you live by your values, you appreciate yourself. An investment, when it goes up in value, appreciates. So when you're setting values, you have to have standards by which you uphold your values for what you will not do. As an example, my number one, so my Joelle and I, in our relationship, our number one value is peace. The thing is, we don't even have to try for peace. It's just a peaceful relationship. The standard is we don't allow unnecessary conflict, chaos, difficult people, troublesome people, or any of that in our life. If that comes in, we go, it's all good. You're not welcome. That's it. Sending you love. It's all cool, man. Like it's nothing personal, but that's what we choose to not have in our life. So for you, it might be, the next value might be to trust. So what you don't allow in is any form of manipulation, any form of lying, any form of deception, including towards yourself. And you go, no, I'm not going to fucking do that ever again. Like the boundary that you set, that you told me about off camera.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's where you learn to trust yourself in saying no. And men need to say no. That's where we start to trust ourselves. That's where we start to split and we start to become our own sovereign being. Insecurity is just based on fear. It's a future-based tenet. So it might give us anxiety or fear to say no, because we might think we're going to lose something. But the more you do it, the less you become afraid to lose something. Then you realize, through fear of loss, the only thing you can lose is the idea that you can lose anything, because you can't lose what's true for you. What's meant for you is always going to be meant for you. What you're meant to lose is the stuff that isn't meant for you, which is the false self. And that's your imprinting from your mother, from your father, from society, from culture, from your ex. You know, don't punish all women for what she did to you, which is pretty fucked. But we've all been through it. I've been through the same. But I allowed it. I stayed in the relationship with that woman for 2 years. I saw the warning signs and I ignored them. I stayed in it. I took responsibility for that. I said, nah, I was there. I chose to do it. I'm going to take responsibility for it. No one else is responsible for it. And that's how we start to upgrade as men. We take full responsibility for everything in our life. That includes our women and our children that are in our life. Joelle, my partner, she's my responsibility. She's my responsibility to ensure she's protected, that she's healthy, that she's happy, that she's purposeful, and that she doesn't even know about 95% of the stuff that I take on. It's so beautiful. She can walk down the street. Oh, the wattles are out. You know, the trees are blossoming. You know, look at the beautiful colors in the sand or whatever we're doing. And I'm sitting there going, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this. And it's just beautiful to witness. And I can't wait to bring a child in with her where they will have the same experience while I take on all of the problems and all of the issues. And that's where we upgrade as men. And we don't make it their problem. We just handle it and we get it done. Now, the reason why in our society, some people come back and go, oh, that's toxic and blah, 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 whatever. It's our natural state. I would rather go through life doing that and get to the end of my life and go, oh, that was worth it. Because men become stronger through difficult things. We need struggle. Now we've got fucking safe spaces to clap like this because clapping's a microaggression. It's absurd, man. It's absurd. And weakness is not a virtue. And I just refuse to accept that. And so knowing who you are by doing this, saying no, having standards for what you will and won't tolerate, you develop a foundation of strength for yourself as a man to know who you are and operate by your inner authority. There is a war in masculinity, and they don't want men to know their inner authority. You know, it's like hard times create strong men, but good times create weak men. And there's a lot of weak men around at the moment. And if women think that men being more like women is the answer, wait till they experience the kickback on that.
Yeah, well, even if we play out the other scenario, you just said, like, as a man, you know, your partner's walking down the street, peaceful, right?
Yeah.
And you're taking on everything in your mind. Let's play out the other scenario. You're putting your stuff onto her. Now she's stressed. There's no peace. The household is chaos.
Yeah.
How's that going to end?
Yeah.
Yet that's where many relationships are.
Yeah.
That's where mine was.
Yeah. And this is, you know, in one of the reels that this woman used to manipulate what I said, leading a woman is about reduction of choice. But I don't, and that's where she cut it off. And then she called me intensely misogynistic, which is complete bullshit. Because the minute the next sentence is, now reduction of choice doesn't mean about control. It means about taking on the things that the woman doesn't want to handle to make her life easier, because women these days are expected to handle everything. Conveniently left that out. She'll probably see this too, which I don't fucking care. But it's just fucking manipulation. It's lying and manipulation. And so this is where we need to take more things on to help our women as men. We do, because now the other issue on the other side of that is the expectations of men, which I'll get into in a minute. Be a protector, be a provider, help around the house. That's just part of it, right? Women, on the other hand, need to lower their expectations of men. We're not the athlete, the CEO, the 50 Shades of Grey guy, the lover, the son, the gossip partner, the billionaire, the adventure junkie, whatever. We're not all of those. So women really need to adjust their expectations of what they want. I see this so often that women will have children with men, their psychological testing goes up, and then their own happiness becomes paramount, so they leave, they split the family up, all because they're chasing a sensation of wanting to feel something and feel a little bit happier. That's very little girl psychology. I'm not talking about if they're in a physically abusive relationship or some sort of intensely abusive relationship. If that's the case, sure. But one of the big red flags I see, if a woman is single with a child that's under 2 and she's chosen to leave just because she's not happy, that means that she's putting herself first over the health of the child, because the child needs the family unit. And so women need to lower their expectations of men too, right? And now the thing is the expectation of men now isn't high at all. It's just we're toxic and that's it. Men are the problem everywhere. But what we need to do as men is go, I don't care about that. I'm not listening to that. I would have folded 2 years ago when I first met you if that stuff affected me. And it affects men every day. You know, we've got young boys that are 8, 9, and 10 years old in schools being told they're automatically toxic, and that we need to make sure that we don't turn them into domestic violence perpetrators. Like, you think about that as a young boy, that you're automatically told that you're toxic. That's an awful space to be in. That's toxic. That's super toxic. How about we start adjusting education systems to suit the biology of a boy, which is meant to be outside, lots of energy, running around, doing rough and tumble play, physical attributes to get it all out. That's why I'm going to homeschool my kid when he comes in. I'm going to homeschool both of them. But if I have a boy, like we'll be doing jiu-jitsu at 4 or 5 years old. He'll be out in nature a lot of the time. We'll have like elements where we can smash stuff together out in our backyard. That's what I'm going to be getting him to do. And so it's very important. I'm going off on different tangents here, but I want to sort of bring it back. Is the way that we overcome the insecurity in the nice guy is to become the protectors and providers. It's as simple as that. If you can't fully provide for a woman, start to work to make a living so you can at least provide for yourself. That's the most important thing. Because I think if you can't provide for yourself, it's very difficult to provide for family.
Definitely. And I want to come back to the expectations piece around. It's a conversation that's not, well, I didn't have it. And a lot of relationships, they don't have the conversation of what each other expect from the relationship. And for me, falling into that Mr. Nice Guy, I was creating covert contracts in my head. You know, I provide for you. You don't have to work, so I expect the house to be clean and give me sex and all that kind of stuff, which in a way was my expectation, but I never expressed it to her. We never had that conversation. I just created these contracts in my head.
Yeah.
How do we openly have these conversations without creating these covert contracts?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to be honest. This is why when you're looking at a relationship, you need to qualify the person based on the criteria that what you want from a relationship. So for me, that's what I wanted from a woman. I wanted her to be looking after the home, cooking the food, and my partner loves to do that. She thrives doing it. You know, I wake up in the morning, I take the dog out, I go get sunlight in my eyes, I do a little bit of cardio for 20 to 30 minutes by doing some hill running. I come home, I have a cold shower. My breakfast is waiting for me, that we have breakfast together. She does that for me. She loves to do it. This is going to spin some women's like mentality on their head because they're going to hate this, because they hate other women being happy too. They hate other women doing that because it's what they think it is just a woman serving a man, but I serve her too. I take care of all the problems, all the bills, all the finances, her emotional state. I take care of her when she's got her menstrual cycle, when she's got her period. You know, I will do all of the heavy lifting everywhere else. And looking after the house that's a full-time job. You know, but she also, while she does that, take her to Europe every year in a business class or first class trip where we stay in 5-star hotels. We're going to Fiji tomorrow morning. We're staying at a $25,000 a week place. She gets the benefit of that. She doesn't have to work for that. She doesn't have to worry about any of it. We fly business class both ways. I take care of her. I take her shopping when she wants it. I pay for all the groceries. I give her a salary every single week. She would need $250,000 if she wants that lifestyle. And so if you think about that, I make no demands on her. I said, this is what I want in the relationship. And I just found a woman, because it took me a lot of women to go through that I was dating, not sleeping with, but dating, getting to know them. They didn't want that. So I'm like, cool. My preference is that. That's it. I don't want a boss babe career woman. Firstly, most of them are fucking difficult as, and they're so annoying, right? They're like, it's like arguing with a petulant child most of the time. They're just oppositional for the sake of being oppositional. It's like, you know, I'm not going to go into that, but I'm not interested in that. I compete with the world enough. I get out there. I'm driven enough. I don't want to date me. I'm difficult, right? I'm very assertive, very difficult, right? I know who I am, so it's hard to get around my boundaries. Women like that are just not appealing to me. Just as I probably wouldn't be appealing to them. They probably want someone that's a soft beta male type that's just willfully compliant, that takes their last name when they get married. You know, that's probably what they want. And if that's what you want, go for it. But what I wanted was, that's what I wanted in my relationship, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less. You know, and this is not about being controlling. It's called having standards. But a man with standards is now called controlling.
Yeah, we're not allowed to have standards.
Not allowed to have standards. We just got to put up with all of her shit behavior and whatever she wants. And she's usually the controlling one. But if we're like, no, this is what I want and this is what I'm after, if you don't fit the bill, cool. And I went through that with many women that I dated. I said, this isn't really what I'm looking for. So you're a great woman, but it's just not going to work. It's not what I want. I want a traditional family where she takes care of me and I take care of her. And that's it. And it works. It's harmonious. Won't work for everyone. That's okay. That's the beauty of the world we live in. You can have whatever you want. And so if you don't want that, if you don't want to have kids, if you want to be single for your entire life, if you want to own 14 cats, I don't give a fuck. Go do it. but don't expect me to accept the way that you live if you can't accept the way I live. You know what I mean? It's not for you to say on one side, this is how we should live, and you can't live that way because it's misogynistic, or if you've got standards, you're controlling and narcissistic. Every fucking woman's ex is a narcissist these days, which means 1% to 2% of the population have dated every fucking woman. It's insane. It's insane. It's like if everything's misogynistic, nothing is.
Yeah.
If everything's toxic, nothing is. We don't talk about toxic femininity, do we? We don't hear that term thrown around.
Never spoken about. It's always toxic masculinity.
It's always toxic masculinity. I even hear that now women are toxic. It's the toxic masculinity in them. It's like, shut the fuck up, man. It's like, fuck off. Like,
they
now
just find anything to fucking have a go at us for.
And to not take responsibility. That's the thing. And it's, toxic femininity is, very seductive. It's manipulation. It's all the things that don't make up pure femininity. And femininity is the prize. That's the thing that these boss babes don't really understand. And this isn't all of them. I've worked with some really high level boss babes that are like top of the top level. They're a pleasure to work with because they're easy to work with because they go, I can learn something from you. I'm talking about sort of the ones that have an axe to grind with men. They're the fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah.
They're the ones I just have no time for. Like the ones that come after me. I got no time for them. They're boring, difficult, unattractive. Like, stay away from me. But usually the ones that are legitimately highly successful, that have done really well, can see that men and women can work really well together. And that's, men and women can work really well together as long as there's a biological compatibility in a relationship. And if we're not serving our true function of protector provider, we're either bringing someone in to mother us, or we're probably going to be single. Really, like, the ultimate male expression is protector provider. It's been around in every culture, and then all of a sudden a couple of people got together and go, let's outdate this.
Fucking hell. I want to actually dive into something a bit of a tangent here around attachment styles, especially around sexual attachments. Like, using me as an example, breaking up with my ex and then feeling like I don't have like a sexual drive towards other women. I'm sexually attached still to my ex.
Yeah.
Is that something you've worked with or seen as a common thing?
Yeah, look, that could go a number of ways, right, with that. Sometimes we become shut down to intimacy with others. I see this a lot from people that have experienced narcissistic or borderline abuse. They will often have a fear of intimacy afterwards. So they get an addiction to the difficult partner, but won't want to sleep with someone else because there's a fear of intimacy. There can be a literal shutdown in a male's body because of that. So they can do that. There can be, it can also be an aspect of maintaining the connection to the person. And it can be an aspect of, I don't want to betray that person. And if I sleep with someone else, that means that that's over for good. And the implications of that can be to the body can shut down as well. That's what I've seen. It's so broad that, you know what I mean? It could be, I would say it's probably more of a fear of intimacy because you said earlier that it's difficult to trust women now because of what's happened. I'd say it's probably more around that than anything else.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point. But then also you made a good point around it. It could be, if I was to be intimate with someone else, that's like cutting the cord of like the connection.
Yeah.
When there must be still a part of me that's holding on to that.
I see this a lot with men, that they get hung up on one woman, and then when they split, they don't want to date any other woman because they think that they might fuck it up. That's them just not wanting to let their mother down. So there's an unconscious aspect. They're not sitting there saying that consciously. It's unconscious. And so I always tell them, like, go date, don't sleep with anyone. You'll start to see that this woman that you're in love with, probably not that special. And then you get access to other women, different women. You go, oh, each woman brings their own beauty to them, so beauty into this. And, especially, and I'm not talking about this on a general sense. I'm talking about the really difficult women, like the ones that are extremely chaotic, that just bring fucking high levels of chaos into your life. That's not attractive to an emotionally healthy person. So when you get around emotionally healthy women, emotionally resilient women, stable women that aren't trying to convince their girlfriend to go and have a girls' night and a girls' weekend away and sleep with whoever they want. Single women love women single, right? They love it, right? So if your girlfriend's got a lot of single women around them, look to her friends.
Yeah.
I wrote a post about this. I said how to find a real woman in a world full of fakes. Look to her friends. If her friends are partying and they're club rats and TikTok influencers, mate, get away from that. Unless they've all got families and whatever, but generally they're chasing clout at that point. So you got to be careful of that. But once you get away from that and you start to actually see the beauty in women, you start to get around good women, not little girls that haven't grown up. You get around good women, mature women, emotionally healthy women. It's a whole different experience.
What would you say are some of the biggest mistakes men make, or even you've made, when it came to going in the dating scene after a breakup?
I didn't actually make any mistakes when I was going into the dating scene after the breakup because I was very strategic around it.
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted. I had my criteria. Before that, that's what got me into trouble, not having that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really make any mistakes. I filtered things out pretty quick and I wasn't afraid to say no. So I think the mistakes that men will make is having a scarcity mindset around that. There are good women everywhere, but look for an emotionally healthy woman, one that comes with tons of baggage. Like, don't be a rescuer. Don't be a rescuer. Don't try to be the savior and ride in on the white horse as the knight that's going to save the woman. It's treating her like a little girl. And the other big mistake that men make is they think that the woman's going to be giving him the unconditional love that he got from his mother. And it's just, that's not going to happen. And they're not meant for that. Women really only fall in love with our strength, security, and confidence. Their biology will fall in love with that. This is why you'll see when women kind of get bored with one guy, they might start looking to jump to another one. Not all the time. Emotionally healthy women generally won't do that. But the mistakes are to think that she's gonna give you the unconditional love that your mother gave you. This is where men, if they don't contribute around the house, they don't help her, especially if they got kids, she's been looking after him all day while he's at work. He comes home, he's too tired, then he's got to take the kid for a little bit. She gets no attention, she gets no compliments. You got to appreciate your woman. You got to learn to say no to her as well. All of these having standards and boundaries for yourself. This is really more how you lead a woman effectively. Because then she can trust you. When she can trust you, she will soften. When you've got a history of handling the things that she doesn't want to handle, she'll start to trust you. When she's going through a difficult time emotionally and you don't try to fix her and you just hold her through it. Did that the other day. Joelle was having a period. Lucky she doesn't mind me sharing because she's just my evidence, really. She's my evidence for this work working. And that's why I love to share it, because it's an honoring to her too in our relationship. And we were getting some stuff ready for Fiji, and she was just really upset, and she just started crying, and I just held her. I didn't try to fix it. I said, it's all right. You can let go. I'm here for you. I got you. It's all good. And just stayed there, sat on the floor with her and hugged her until she'd gone through it. Then within like 2-3 minutes, she was laughing. And that's it. You just don't try to fix them. Then she knows she can bring her expression to you. You don't try to fix her or change her, which is dismissive unconsciously, even though the intention is usually good for a man. It's like, oh, don't worry. And she might say, I'm stupid or I'm an idiot or whatever. And you go, no, you're not. No, you're not. That's dismissing her experience in the time. You just tell them you love them, hold them, and go, it's all right, baby, I'm here. I've got you until you're ready to let this go. That's all I do. I never try to fix Joelle when she's upset, ever, not once. Hold her through it, hold her really tightly, and within a couple of minutes, it's over. So I've learned that through doing it the other way, which was my mistake. But men these days, they feel they either have to fix or get some value, or they might lose the woman, or they might upset the woman, or they might let her down. You just go, look, I'm not responsible for everything that you go through. This is what men get afraid of. They think that they've got to fix the woman all the time. So if you're with your woman and you start to set boundaries, saying no, and especially if she tries to project something onto you, I've said it to Joelle once. I said, that's not mine to handle, that's yours. I'm not going to therapize this with you, because I'm not going to turn into your therapist when you're having a hard minute. And that was the difference between holding her when she's truly upset and she needs me versus setting a boundary for taking on something that isn't mine. And this is where you actually become strong in the relationship. She might not like that, but she'll trust you and she'll respect you. Respect is more important to us as men than love. That's where you've graduated from immature masculine psychology to mature masculine psychology. Immature will just want the love from the woman. Mature masculine will want respect. And respect is being solid in your word to your woman.
Yeah. A man will go where he feels respected as well.
Yeah, and he won't go where he's not needed.
Mm.
So if a woman's going, I don't need you, it's like, all right, see ya. Simple as that. If a woman's disrespecting you, insulting you, trying to emasculate you, just go, see ya. So all the men out there listening to this, believe me, there are good, beautiful, traditionally feminine women out there that love masculine men. They love them more than there are that aren't. I can guarantee you that. I reckon it's probably 70-80% of women love traditionally masculine men. It's just that society, which is banging the drum big time on it, has convinced women they want something else, and that we should treat men like malfunctioning women. And the tide is turning, man. It is. And I think you'll see it over the next 2 to 4 years, where the hyper feminist boss babe kinds, they're just gonna sort of be exiled a little bit out. And women are like, I have women message me multiple times a week saying, I'm in tears, I'm in my 40s, I wish I'd found you, or wish you'd been around when I was younger, because you call it out. And like, they get into their 40s and they don't have a family. They've had some success, they've had a business, but they don't have kids, they don't have a man to look after them. And the grief, man, is massive. And they're like, I was sold a lie, it was a con. This doesn't mean it's for everyone. The women that want to do this, go for it. I support you. It's cool. I get a lot of messages telling me to the contrary, though. So just consider where you're taking your information from. I'm not a woman, obviously, so I don't know how to tell a woman to be a woman. I'm not to do that. I'm just telling people and sharing what I experience through the feedback that I get. Some women are scared to say that they want traditionally masculine men. Men are scared to say that they want to be traditionally masculine. And there's a tiny little fucking population that are telling us that we can't be that. Tiny, like a very small group of people. They've just got the biggest platform to do so. So it's just, if you embrace your traditional biological instincts, the male body is the male biological hardware. When you line that up with your masculine psychological software, protector, provider, virtuous discipline and containment, you got a winning combination.
Well, your relationship with Joel gives hope that there is beautiful women out there. But it all starts with us as men. We've got to build ourselves up first to be able to attract the women like that as well.
100%. And you have to go from immature boy psychology to mature masculine male psychology. That's the journey. And the key component is splitting from the mother. It doesn't mean exiling the mother, psychologically splitting, which is what you're going through now, and not listening to the social narratives of the cultural devouring mother that wants to erase masculinity. Get those two right, you're pretty good.
Now, I know you're not a father yet, and this is something that I'm struggling with to a degree, is being a single dad, and there's a lot of single dads out there, and I'm sure you've worked with some single dads as well, is in a way we feel like we have to play both roles, the masculine and the feminine, for our children. Can that be done, or how do you suggest we go about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would look to grandmothers or aunties or sisters to fulfill the role, at least intermittently, as best as possible. I don't think we can be everything to everyone. And I think that's the issue. And I think where society has split the family up, it's been a major problem with that, with the healthy development of children. I can't remember her name. She's on Diary of a Seer. Her name's Erica someone. I would recommend everyone go listen to her stuff. She's phenomenal with discussing that. But I would say get the masculine aspects right first. Just do that. Focus on that. And then obviously you're going to need to be gentle and kind, and there's going to be some sort of nurturing there as well. But don't try to be the mother. Just be an excellent father. I can't remember the studies or the statistics, so I don't want to say accurate numbers here. But I think it's 80% of inmates in America are raised by single mothers. The statistics on the NIS and childwelfare.org show that mothers are the biggest abusers of children. I think it's 72% to 36 or something, mother, father, respectively. These statistics show that the biggest impact on the child is the mother. And that one of the, not even one of, but the key component in a child's health is the father's presence. And I can't remember the statistics. I wish I had them up now. I didn't know we were going to talk about this. But I think a child being raised by a single father is almost the same outcome as being raised by two parents. But the child being raised just by the mother without contact with the father is really, it can be really difficult and detrimental. It's not saying it's universal. These are uncomfortable statistics. I'm not attached to them. These are just objective facts. You can check on childwelfare.org and I think it's the National Study for the Maltreatment of Children, something like that. You can go look at the statistics for yourself. Don't trust my word on it. Go figure it out. Could be the numbers might be slightly different, just to let everyone know. Be a good, solid, reliable, masculine father and provide structure and discipline to the child. And discipline isn't punishment. It's about helping them to learn and demonstrate that, and your child just will naturally benefit. And if there's feminine influence, your mum, her grandmother, sisters, friends, any sort of femininity you can get her around would fill that role.
There's real depth in the way you hold yourself, your frame, and the way you lead your life. I'm very curious, does faith play a part in your life?
From a religious perspective?
Yeah.
Not so much religious. I read the Bible a couple of years ago, but I couldn't quite fully cross the bridge with it. And I think the nature of a divine relationship or a relationship with God, I definitely believe in God.
Yeah.
I just look for my own personal experience with that as opposed to reading a book of someone else's experience and then I'm following that. You can be whatever you want. I respect everyone's religion. Go do whatever you need, what works for you. So there is an element of faith there. You could say that it's an element of faith. I just don't identify it in a way that is specific to one order. There was one guy that I read, Nisargadatta Maharaj. He wrote a book called I Am That. And he said all religions are same meaning, different words. Right? There's similar flavors through all of them. But I can take something from each one. The teachings of Christ, as an example, the teachings of the Buddha, there's beauty in all of it. So I don't hold myself to one, but I definitely hold myself to a strong faith with God.
The reason I bring that up is I feel the demise of the family unit is also from the demise, like faith being lost in society as well.
Yeah, I agree. And because you look at, I think conservatives have much larger families and they're much more devout in that practice. And you look, society becomes stable under that role, and I think that what marriage is a covenant under God. That's why I waited to do it. So you could look at it from that perspective, but when my partner and I get married in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be making a covenant to one another under God to stay together. That's what we'll be looking for. And then when you've got something bigger than you that you're committed to, this is where the we comes before the me. Most people now, they don't honor their commitments. They don't honor their word in their relationships. They don't care. So they don't go forward into it. This is why I say that most men shouldn't get married before 35. Even Aristotle said that. I think it was Aristotle or Socrates, one of the two. 2,000 years ago said men shouldn't get married before 35.
Because we're not mature enough?
Yeah, life experience. And I'm glad that I didn't. I see a lot of religious accounts saying get married as young as possible and have kids. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know about that. Each to their own. And I can respect them for saying, I know why they're saying that, to have as many kids as possible. I think for me, with that, if I'd had a kid in my 20s, man, I'd be paying the bill for fucking that kid up big time. Because I just wouldn't have had the tools or the mechanisms to be able to help him. Now, and Joelle and I were talking about this the other day, and we're talking about leaving the money. I do pretty well. And so I said, it's not about leaving my kids a lot of money. It's about leaving them with the skills to understand who they are and how to identify their own problems so they can become healthy children. And we were talking about legacy, and my biggest legacy is to leave healthy children. That's it. I don't care about my name on a building or being remembered. I don't give a shit about that. I just want my child to be as healthy as possible and make sure that they grow up never knowing what I grew up in. And that's the greatest gift I can give the world in that perspective.
Yeah, see, with me, I'm super blessed that I had my daughter when I was 25.
Yeah.
In a way, it forced me to really go within and to grow and to focus on being a better version of me for her. And I think it all comes down to the individual and what they've gone through and their experiences. But for me, yeah, it's been the huge blessing. Yeah. And I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, and everyone says that, so I don't have a kid yet, but I know everyone that says that. Everyone that has children that I know says exactly the same thing. My path was just a little different. Now I'm grateful for where I'm at because I'm financially set. My career is set. You know, I've got a good reputation for what I do. I've got results in that. I'm strong, fit, and healthy. I'm in my 40s. I'm the best. I've overcome all of my childhood bullshit. I'm in the best possible position to have a child. So I can bring a child in and go, oh, cool. This one's not going to take on all the shit that I had to take on from my parents. So for me, that was just the way that it worked. That's what God wanted for me to go down that path. And in the meantime, I can sit there and go, this is the best I've ever been in my life. I didn't even know I could get to this level. And here I am. And what a gift to be able to give that to a child.
And the good thing with us men is we can, as long as we're healthy, we can keep reproducing as well.
100%.
I met a couple the other week. I think the guy's 50 odd. He has 7 kids and they homeschool all of them.
Wow.
I was like, wow, hats off to you, man.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. That's a lot.
So I won't be having 7. I don't think you'll be having 7.
Nah, I like the idea of one and done.
1, really?
Yeah, one and done. Maybe 2, but you know, I'm 42. By the time I get to round 2, it'd be 46. You know, my dad was 46 when he had me. And
Yeah, okay.
I want my son or my daughter to grow up with a young father. And now you could say 4 years doesn't make a difference, but it does. When they turn 10, I'll be 56 and 66 when they're 20.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm thinking longer term with that. But I have a feeling that, you know, we'll have a child this side next year in the world next year, or Joe will be heavily pregnant by next year for sure. So we'll see. I can say that from a very logical standpoint that one and done. She'll probably have 1 and 3 months. I'd like, fucking, let's go. Let's have triplets.
I think once you have your first one, you'll be like, oh, wow. It's a whole different love, and
Yeah.
I think you'll go for more.
Yeah, probably. Like I'm speaking from naivety, but
Yeah.
I'm also willing to call my own bullshit and go, I'll probably get there and go, oh, you know what? This is phenomenal. Let's do it again.
And especially when you can provide and support them, like there's no limitations.
Also, I've gotten to a point which is important is I've done everything I want to do in life. That's the thing. I've traveled the world. I've made millions of dollars. I'm super successful. I've got everything I want and need. I've made it, lost it, made it again. I've got a very colorful history as well. I've got great friends around me. There's nothing that's like, oh my God, I have to do this. That comes in my purpose in serving and helping men and providing impact and creating impact and going, fuck the narratives. Let's create strong men again. Let's create healthy, strong, psychologically sound and available men that honor their biological instincts and honor their masculine psychological software. So I've done everything. You know, I'm not dying to go party or, you know, live on a yacht in Ibiza or act like Conor McGregor or something like that out in the world. That doesn't interest me. Like, I like being at home with Joelle, you know, with my little family. We got a dog, and then when the child comes along or the children come along, it's like that's my world. I've done everything else I need to. The rest is just fun.
And you know what? That little world that you have will be the most fulfilling you will feel.
Yeah, I'm already super fulfilled. And so there's nothing left for me to do. So when I think as men, you mature into masculine psychology, you're going to want to have a father. You're going to, want to have children, become a father.
Yep.
You know, you'll actually be going, oh, okay, this is now the next thing for me. Whereas younger guys like yourself may not plan it. Whereas I am actually like, okay, what do I have to do? What do I have to clean up? How far do I have to go to get this to a point where I feel comfortable to now bring a child in this world? Because I know that it's the biggest responsibility of my life. And what most men miss is in that first 6 to 12 months, it's you go to the bottom of the list and you have to be prepared for that. And so for me, I know when we have our child, our first one, there's everything else and I'm at the bottom. I'm there just to take care of her, to serve her, to look after her, to make sure she's okay and the child's okay. And I'm fully prepared to do that. Most men don't want to lose the maiden when the maiden becomes the mother. So they go, oh, you know, she doesn't want to have sex with me all the time like before. We don't have as much free time. And it can become very difficult for the male to accept that if he's not fully mature. Whereas when you get into a more mature masculine space, you go, I'm the bottom of the list and I'm cool with that. I'm cool with all of it. And so going in prepared for that, I think, is a really important thing to know.
Jag, once again, we've had an amazing conversation. We could probably continue going.
Yeah.
You do amazing work, man, and hats off to you for doing the work that you do, because not many people are prepared to put themselves out there on the chopping board like you do. So I'm super grateful that you do your work and super grateful that you took the time to come out and chat with me today. For people that want to follow you or maybe work with you, where's the best place to contact yourself?
Yeah, thanks, man. And it's just a testament to you as well. You know, this is our second podcast in 2 years. I'm sure there'll be a third or a fourth later on down the track. But it's, I appreciate you having me on and being able to sit here and go through it with me. It takes a certain amount or a certain type of man to be able to do it, because a lot of the stuff I talk about is uncomfortable, but I only know because I've been on the other side sitting across thinking, what the fuck do I do? And I don't know. So it's testament to you as well. And what we spoke about off camera, you know, I got a lot of respect for you and what you're doing. So I'm happy that we could sit here and do this today. So I appreciate the platform. So thank you for that. To follow me, Instagram, Pure Jaguar, Pure Jaguar, and I'm running a men's group at the moment to help men break through this. This is not your sit around and cry and talk about your problems type of women's group that most men's group are run these days in that format. This is, I teach and I work with a man one-on-one to help him resolve things, and we do 2 sessions a week. So it's very involved, but it's extremely powerful. So I would recommend, if any man's interested in that and wants real change, then I'm your man.
Jag, thank you so much.
Thanks,
man.
brother.
Pleasure.